one way on Instagram, looking totally different on another. Alexa, stop. Can you imagine? I had set my alarm, right? Alexa, stop. Yeah, that's real life. All right. So if your content is all over the place, looking one way on Instagram, totally different, and your website, that's a whole different story, then of course you are not alone. You are not alone. You might think you are alone, but yeah, many entrepreneurs struggle with inconsistent branding across social media. I've seen it. I've worked with clients who, they'll say, "Hey, Carrie, I'm really struggling with this. I have Canva, I have Canva Pro. I know how to do the basics in Canva, and some of the times they have been just doing it themselves. Maybe they hired a designer, they have tweak templates, but for them it's just not professional, it's just not cohesive. So whether you're doing it yourself or you're tweaking a template that you purchase on a creative platform or marketing place, I know how frustrating it can get. Trust me, I do know how frustrating it can get. So the good news is you can fix it. If you have Canva, which I'm sure many of you are because you clicked on this video, then you can fix it with just the right tools and strategy. In this session, I'm just going to be walking you through using the brand hub, the brand kit, brand templates. I've created quite a few videos on this already, but I will not take it for granted that you already know. There are some changes in the brand kit, some new little features and tweaks, and you just want to just be mindful of them, aware of them, so that when you go in and start creating, then it's just easy for you to just jump in, do what you have to do. And one of the big branding mistake is just having inconsistent visuals, and sometimes we really don't know, because one, you're just like, okay, I'm using a brand color, so I'm fine, or I'm using the fonts, I'm fine. But it's just more than that. It's about not being clear, not having a consistent system for your brand visuals, which means that every time you're creating something for content, you're always starting from scratch. And trust me, that can be really exhausting, time consuming, and it weakens your brand presence. So, if you don't have the design background and you always have to be doing that, then honestly, it's just too much, right? So I'm just going to be talking and walking you through that. In previous videos, I've talked about branding mistakes. You can check them out here on my channel. I'll link them in the description for you. If you're watching the replay, just comment and tell me what is the most challenging thing for you when it comes to your visuals. Is it, making the tweaks or maintaining the consistency after you've hired a designer? Or is it because you're just doing everything alone and you feel like, listen, I need some help? I have a offer where I provide a brand audit, free audit session, go through your socials, whichever platform you decide. And then we sit down in a 30-minute strategy session, helping you how, or just walking you through how you can really fix it, giving you a plan to set you up for success. So I'm just gonna be, excited to work with you if that's something you want to do one-on-one. The link is in the comments, the link is also in the description. All right. So let's dive in. But one of the powerful things I want you guys to know is that the brand hub is where you think about like your control center. It's where your logos, your fonts, your colors, your templates, everything is organized in one place. It's where you set the guidelines and the rules. Your brand hub is also where it helps you to be consistent. I call it like the foundation. It's where you get things started, right? And we're just gonna walk through that now. So I'm just gonna share my screen with you, and we're gonna dive in. All right. So first things first is that we are now on the home page of Canva. We are on the home page of Canva, and you should be quite familiar with this. That's the truth. You should be quite familiar with what this looks like. And what you're going to do is on the left hand panel, you're going to navigate to brand. And once you select brand, that is where your brand hub is. That's where you have your brand, what we call it a hub, everything, your brand kit, your brand template, your brand controls. Like I said, I have done quite a few videos just talking about this. And like you see here, I have my brand kit for, clients I've worked with, my personal brands. I've even created brand kits for, just Canva templates that I've created, because I've created a persona for these templates. And so for your brand, whether you're on the free version or the pro version or the teens version of Canva, you want to ensure you set up a brand kit. You don't take it for granted that you need a brand kit. I like to say it is the foundation to help you get started. And so I have the brand hub here. I won't walk you through, like, setting up the brand hub and that kind of thing, because I already have videos on that and it's linked in the description. But what I'll be doing is just clicking on or choosing a brand kit that I already have. And then I'm just going to walk you through all the elements that is included here and the things that you should look for and ensure you have in your very own brand kit. If you have the free version of Canva, you can just set up the one brand kit and you work from there. Like I said, it's the foundation. So one of the key things you need to have is your logo. If you don't like have an official logo created or made, you can have a mark, right? Otherwise, when you're starting out, depending on where you are in the journey, of course, you need to have all the assets that makes your brand have a strong presence, right? So that means having a logo. And so this brand is for a woman summit, right? It's called the Rise Woman Summit. And so I've included all the logos here, have different colors here that is included. If you wanted to, you could go ahead and just name the different logos, right? That helps you just to be able to easily just be organized and, structure your thing properly. And then you have your color palette. So we can select on the left hand tab here. I can select logos. Now I'm going to select colors, which is your color palette. This means the colors that you will be using for your brand. Every time you design something in Canva, every time you're going to roll out something new, you should have elements of your color palette. And the key thing here is that you are seeing like codes. These are called X codes, which means even though you might say, yes, I use purple for my brand, you need to know the X codes. These are the code, this is the code, right, for the color, the shade purple that I'm using for this brand. The same thing for the orange and so on and so forth. You can have this in a different document. I've talked about just having a brand guideline, and just having everything in just a document where you're just like, listen, if you're going to hire a designer, if you're going to work with someone to design, you need to also share that with them so you can maintain the brand consistency. And then we're looking at fonts. Now, fonts is, this is where you're coming to choosing the font that matches your brand personality and style. I talk a lot about that as well. I have videos on my channel just talking about the importance of having a brand personality. What does your brand represent? Who are you talking to? What's the emotions you want to evoke? And so for this brand, I've chosen like a font. This font is called Abigail, which I purchased on Creative Market. But this just gives more like a feminine, unique style. And that is what the brand represents as well. So I chose this font as a title, subtitle, and heading. And then, of course, I have like subtext or sub-heading fonts that I utilize, like Poppins, right? The name's not very important right now, but what you want to do is to ensure you're maintaining consistency using like 1 to 3 fonts the most. You don't need to have multiple fonts at all, or you don't need to have too many fonts when you're creating your designs. All right. And one of the things I need to point out to you before I move ahead is that you can upload your font if you purchased a font from like an external platform or marketplace like Creative Market. Of course, you can upload the font here. Always just be mindful that you can use it for commercial use if that's the purpose. Always be aware of the license used, and you can add like your text style and add your guidelines. So this is where you can say, hey, this is the guideline for the font. This is where you use it. This is how to use it. This is when to use it. This is very important. Again, you might not have a designing background. So this is something that would be ideal for you to work with a designer on. Also, this is where you can say, hey, ideally, this font is where I want to use it. And then you can always double check to see if it's the best usage, right? So that's for fonts. Now we have brand voice. This isn't new to Canva, but it is an area or just an asset that I think a lot of us need to be more mindful of. And this comes into play with our messaging. Before, so heavily talking about branding and that kind of thing, I oftentimes would overlook messaging and focus more on just the visual side of things. But the more you're building out your brand and growing, messaging is a key part. And Canva has realized that and included brand voice as part of their brand kit because, hey, this is the tone of how you're going to communicate when you're creating just the copy for your design. You need to have this in place, and you'll see how this is used just throughout Canva, whether you're using the magic, right, whether you're doing a presentation, whether you're doing a video, whatever you're creating, the brand voice can be used all across in Canva. So you can go in, tell exactly what you want your brand voice to sound like and feel like, how you are going to communicate with your audience. And then this is an important element, which is photos. Do not take it for granted. Be very clear about what your brand is about. It should match your personality and your style. And so, in terms of photos, you want to ensure that you have photos that evoke the similar things. So, if your brand is about trust and sincerity, then of course you should have some images that reflect some amount of smiling and happiness and joy, that kind of thing. So for this photo, if you don't have any photos like on, probably you don't have any photos on your desktop, maybe you don't have any brand photos, but you're going to use stock images, you can, one, link it to a folder, which means that's why, if having folders in Canva is so important. I have a video talking about that, but just to touch on it briefly, is that you can find stock images on Canva, put create a folder, add those photos to the folder, and hey, call it that these folders are part of the brand. And then the other thing is that you want to, what would I say, link it in this section. So what I went ahead and what I did for this was to link it. So once I select this, what you're seeing here is that I have a folder with all my photo that I have. These photos are stock photos from Pixie Stock. It's one of my favorite, platforms to utilize, that has stock images of black women, of women of color, that just matches lifestyle and business. So if that's something you want to use in terms of stock images, you can check out Pixie Stock. But really, just being able to link my photos. But you're also seeing here that I have some graphics here. If I wanted to be more granular, then of course I could have gone ahead and created another folder that separates my graphics from my photos, just to put it lightly. Then I am going back over to my brand kit where I have icons. This just helps to bring about like some personality and uniqueness to your brand. So for instance, you're designing something, you need to use an icon, or you need to add like a really creative touch or element. This is something you can have as well. And then one of the newest, assets as part of the brand kit that Canva has included is charts. Canva has just been rolling out a lot of features. And so for your brand, chances are you're going to be creating presentations and you need to do charts. So what they have gone ahead and say, hey, for your chart style, you can just go ahead and include the colors that you want, and they can restyle it as necessary. So this is what your brand kit looks like. These are the assets you need to have. You can go ahead and share it with someone else if you need to, that kind of thing. So I'm going back now to brand templates. Now, brand templates is where you go ahead and you have created a design, whether you're creating from scratch or you're going to use Canva templates and make it your own, matching it back to just your visuals and just having something to help you to be consistent and cohesive. So this is what it looks like for my brand, Carey Digital. And then I'm going to just walk you through something that I already created for this brand that we're using, which is Rise Women Summit, and show you exactly how you can just create a brand template of your own, but more importantly, how you can make it look more cohesive across the board. And then I don't want to go without mentioning brand controls. If you are working with like multiple, what I say, team members, whether you're a small team where you're going to hire a virtual assistant, sorry, if you're going to be just onboarding anybody at all to just assist you, then you can have some restrictions here, right? If you have Canva Teams, this is perfect because you can set the restrictions, restrict your team to just using your brand colors only. So no matter what they do, no matter what they're designing, then of course they would have to be using these colors, and there's a literally a restriction. Then it's the same thing for fonts, and you also have the bandwidth to restrict or make approval. So before they publish or share any design, you can say, hey, allow them to get approval before they publish a design. All right. So if you have any questions about this, you can go ahead and just comment below, and I'll be glad to answer your question about anything related to the brand kit, brand template, and brand controls. Now let's get into the more exciting part, I think. So I'm going to home, or maybe I should go back to brand, make it simple for ourselves. So I'm going back to my brand kit, and like I said, it's the Rise Summit. I am going to select my graphics. I think I overlooked this part, but if I did, right, you can also link your graphics here. So this is the graphic that I created. So I'm going to select open, and once I've opened this graphic, what you're seeing here is that I've already created a graphic for this brand. So I'm going to select it. It was an Instagram carousel that I created. This format looks a little different. So if designing isn't really a thing, but you're designing Canva, so this is just another way you can create carousels. I design it in this way. Then I download it and just split it using an external tool. I can show you what that looks like. I'm going to show you what that looks like in just a quick second before we jump back into our our session. Let me show you what that template or graphic looked like when I worked on it. I'm looking for it on my Instagram account. I designed this particular graphic last year as just part of a creation process with Creative Market. So now you're seeing my screen. So this is what it looked like. I was showing the process of content creation, but really this is what it looked like. And there's just another one here. All right. So that's just a quick showing you what it looks like kind of thing. All right, let's jump back into the meat of things. All right, so let's talk about it. So Canva rolled out Visual Suite 2.0. Visual Suite 2.0 is just a major thing right now. It's where productivity meets creativity. And what does that even mean? So I know for a lot of you guys, when you're designing in Canva, you have one design for an Instagram carousel, you have another design for your reel, you have another design for probably your website or a landing page, then you have another design for presentations. You don't have to do that again, right? You don't have to do that again. You don't have to be switching between all the designs. And of course, they have made it easier over the years in terms of how you could incorporate designs into like a new design, but this is just amazing. And what I'm talking about is being able to do multiple design in one design. And I am going to select pages because that's where I'm seeing my page thumbnails. And if I select page one, this is where you're seeing my Instagram carousel. If I wanted another design similar to this, I could simply add page, and what you're seeing is a similar layout and design, structure ready so for me to get started. However, I don't want that. What I want is a new design, and this can literally be from Canva sheet, doc, presentation, whiteboard, social media, any social media platform you can think about, a video, graphics to be created for print, websites, and as you see more, I can do something entirely custom here. So as part of just maintaining your consistency, one of the things you want to be mindful is just like, hey, what are the key assets do I need? You have to be thinking about what are the key assets I need to be sharing or creating. So for social media, if your main platform is on Instagram, then you'll be like, okay, the content format I'll be choosing is reels, carousel, stories. So literally, you can use the same document and create multiple designs, creating the reels, carousels, and the stories, which I'm going to show you how to do. And then if, for instance, you're also on YouTube, then you can do the same thing in that same document. And the amazing thing is that you can just download based on the pages. So there's no limitation. If you want to do a website as well, it's pretty much the same thing. So I'm jumping back in to show you exactly how you can do that. But a key thing, like I said earlier, is that you need to know what you will be creating before you start creating. All right. So what I'll be creating here for you is a social media. Let's choose a story. Hold on. Let's go back. Social media, Instagram story. Perfect. So let me delete the first design here. All right, so we have our Instagram story. It's a blank canvas. Listen, I understand. Maybe you cannot design from scratch. You don't want the stress of designing from scratch. Simply on the left hand tab, select design. Then you're going to type in a story. So for this, it's an event. So you can be very specific and say event story. So you can just go in and find a template that is easy for you to tweak. And what do I mean by this? So I could even probably be more specific. Let me see. I can be very specific. I'm probably going to use a woman event Instagram story, or probably I could say something like feminine. Whatever way, you just want to choose a template that you know you can easily replicate or tweak. I'm going to choose this one, right? So this one is for a course, but of course you can always change the graphics and make some tweaks. Here's the amazing thing. Once you have set up your brand kit, which is the foundation, you can simply go to the left hand tab, select brand, and then you're going to select color palette. The color palette is, once you start shuffling it, you realize the colors start to change, which is amazing. So you choose a color. Now you realize that, let me zoom in some more. Now you realize that, okay, I have the brand colors, but it doesn't have my brand. There's nothing. My aesthetics is not there. I don't have my images. I don't have the fonts. You simply select any font of your liking, and then you select the toolbar where you see the font option here. And then you're going to scroll all the way down until you see your brand kit, right? And you see Rise Women Summit. I can go ahead and choose my font here, which is Abigail, which I said this is for my heading. And I can say change all, which means for every font that was TT4s, it's going to be changed to no Abigail, right? And then I'm going to go ahead now and change any other font that I want to change out. And you can go ahead and do the same thing here for all the fonts. And pretty much, let's change out this one. All right, we're gonna make some tweaks. All right, let's make some quick tweaks. We want to delete that. All right, so what you have already realized is that we have changed the fonts. And now you might realize, okay, we need some tweaks. Probably we're not seeing the font clear enough. So you can make it larger and you can reposition your elements as necessary. So I'm just gonna make this a bit larger that we can see it. I'm going to delete any unnecessary thing. Of course, before you get started, it's always good to have your copy ready. But just in case you don't have your copy ready, I'm going to show you how you can just include your copy here using Magic Write to just have some level of consistency. Now, for this image here, well, this is not a part of our brand. However, in our brand kit, we do realize that we have linked it to some photos, right? Some folder, the photos folder. I'm going to select that. Then I'm going to scroll all the way down and find one of these images to simply replace it with. And it's just a simple drag and drop just to change it out. Again, maybe I don't want to use a phone. I can do something different. But in this case, we're just going to work with what we have, right? And then we're going to go ahead and be like, okay, how can I add some more elements to this? Now, the key important thing here in this folder that you see I've called the photos is where I have other assets that makes my brand unique to me. And these assets are what I call my floral assets. So you might have something different for you. It might be an abstract shape or some different brand elements. And I can just go ahead and just add just some different elements here to make my design unique. I'm going to add something else here just to make my design unique, and you're not overdoing it. And because we want our front font, sorry, to be legible, then we make it as big as possible. Maybe I want to change this text. I can use Magic Write. I'm going to select Magic Write and say something like shorten, or I can make it more fun or more formal. Again, it can be anything that I want, but it should match your brand voice. And remember, I was talking about brand voice earlier. This is where it comes into play. So I can say, well, I want to apply my brand voice, I want to change my brand voice, or I want to add a new brand voice. Again, how are you communicating? How are you resonating? How do you want to resonate with your audience? What's the emotion you want to evoke? So I can say, well, I want to apply my brand voice. And of course, it says this is our most significant event of the year. All right, fine. We can replace it with that. But maybe that's too long. So instead of using it, I can say, well, this but, and this but, make it shorter and more fun. So I'm generating that. Or biggest bash of the year. And if that's how we communicate, then this would work perfectly. So let me just switch around this element just a little. Let me do a little adjustment here. All right. So this is what we have here. All right. We're doing some slight adjustments for our graphic, right? And one of the things I would like to say is that if you don't have a very strong design background, don't try to do too much. Minimal is good. You don't need to fill out all the white spaces or empty spaces in this graphic. All right. And then we can say, we can also use Magic Write and change the text here as well. And then we can say, make it more fun. All right. And I've used Magic Write and more like this, but um, more engaging. All right. And for this font, because it's too, very scripty, then I would go ahead and change it to pop int. So these are just some minimal things that you can do to just make some changes. And of course, we can just reposition our graphic as, not graphic, but our element or our text as necessary. And if you're using a website or sharing a website here, you want to include a call to action, then this would be perfect. All right, and I'm going to change the font here as well. All right. So two things that you should be mindful of. There are three, maybe. One, you have realized that I've changed this template from one being, looking like Canva's template. Sure, there's one main element that stand out that make me realize that Canva template, because maybe I don't need a phone here, right? But we're not doing all the tweaking with the design work. It's really showing you the things you can change to make your template your own, which is one, changing the brand colors, two, adding your brand assets like that makes or adds personality to your design, changing the brand, the text. So if there's a text there that you probably like, but it doesn't match your brand voice, you can go ahead and do that. And then the other thing that you can do is just to add like your own elements, use the magic write, that kind of thing. All right, let's work with this. All right. Try not to do too much, guys. I'm trying not to do too much. All right. I just want to show you the basics of how to do things here. All right. This is what it is. All right. Let's look at what it looks like when we make it a bit bigger. Can work. It can work. So here's the thing. So for you, we were focusing on this summit. So one, we need an Instagram carousel to promote it. Two, we need a Instagram story to just share it with persons to let them know that hey, this is happening. So the next thing you want to do now is like, okay, I need to have a reel. And you're gonna go now to add page type. Then I'm going back to social media. Then I'm going to be looking for an Instagram reel. Now we have an Instagram reel here. Again, you do not have to create it from scratch. You don't have to create it from scratch. So you're going to go to design. Then, an amazing thing that I love about this, right, is because though this is a multi-design, document, or though this is multiple design, right, and we're creating different designs, what I like is that each time I create a new page, a new content type or format or page type, the elements or the templates changes as well, which is amazing. Remember one time, if you're creating a design, you'd have to come out of this design and switch to another one, or go to uploads and swap out. you don't have to do that anymore. And this helps you to get like a very good look overall of what your brand looks like. So you can say, okay, when I look at everything holistically, is it cohesive? When I look at it individually, it may look good, but when I look at everything like, across the board, is it consistent? Is it cohesive, kind of thing, right? So we're going to here and we are going to select a reel, but I already added a reel design that I liked to one of my folders. So I am going to the section that says graphics. Hold on. Photos, actually, not graphics. Let me go back. So I'm going back to brand. Then I'm going to my folder photo section, right? So the design I have here is for a Sunday brunch. So I'm selecting this option here. And I can go ahead and just make some swap outs. So I could change the background. If I want to use a stock video, which would be amazing, I can go ahead here and just change out all the font types similar to what I did earlier, ensuring that I'm using Abigail. So I'm changing that, deleting any unnecessary fonts that I don't want. Then I'm going to change, using Magic Write, I can go ahead and change. But let me just change out the font types here first. And yeah, if at any point you see change all the fonts, just do it instead of going and clicking on the elements one by one. So I'm going to make this larger. Then in the background, I am just going to make it a bit transparent. Let's double click and delete. That's an element. So let me make this transparent, right? And then I'm just going to add like a quick element here. And I'm just going to send it to the back. Let me zoom out a little so you can see the screen properly. And I'm just going to make it transparent, send it to the back. So you can use your keyboard or you can just use layer and say send to back, right? And if you realize it's not very visible, then of course you probably need to make some changes. I'm going to go back to layer and use my video here that I had in the background, probably make it a little brighter, right? Um, and then I am going to change the colors. So for this color, maybe I would use something else. Maybe I think the background is too dark. So let me just remove that. And let me just find one of my images, or I could just go to elements and use brunch, look for something called brunch, right? Or perfect. I do have an image or photo, I should say, that would work perfectly for this. Let me find it. Let me find it. All right. So we have these photos with these ladies. So I could just send it to back, right? This would be a really good photo to use actually. All right. So I send this photo to the back. Then if I wanted to, I could trim it, or I could get really fancy and use a lot more elements to make this photo edit, which we're not going through in this session. I'm just literally showing you how to make your designs a little bit more cohesive. All right, I'm going to change the color here and change the transparency just a little, not too dark. All right, and then we can just reposition our text as necessary. All right, let me zoom in just a little bit more so I can see what I'm working with. And if I wanted to add like my logo, I would go back to my brand kit. Then I look for where I have my logo and I can add my logo there, right? And you just find something that matches or is easy, or not easy, but visible to your audience and easy to read. All right. So we have rise. We have the text here. Again, we can use Magic Write, ask it to change it, make more fun, just doing something simple, replacing it here. And then you can just, any element that you don't need, you can change it. But this is just a general gist of how you can make it your own. And then one other thing is to, if you want to add your brand element, that kind of thing, right? So this is just a pretty simple basic design, because what I'm going to show you in just a few is just that you can save this brand template so that every time you're designing, you come back here and you make the necessary tweaks. When you're creating and using brand templates, you want to keep the designs as simple as possible so that every time you go back, you're not thinking about like, oh my God, there's so many elements I need to change and move around. All right. So this is what we have here. If I wanted, I can just get a little bit more dynamic, and I can just add like a shape behind it so I can let the key things stand out. Right. I can just, make some necessary adjustments. All right, cool. We're not overdoing it. We're not overdoing it at all. Right. I just wanted to just give you guys some general ideas of how you can just bring your graphic to life using brand templates. All right, good. We have it here. So let's do a quick look and run through. Let's see how things are looking cohesively. All right, so I'm going to just go big with my design. Let me start from page one, right? So page one, we see this, we have this graphic. It looks very nice, beautiful, floral. It has some elements of just fun. So we have the vibrancy here going on. We have the fonts. We have an idea what the fonts are, what the assets are, what the photos, everything looks like. Does the second one look like it? Well, we're still maintaining the floral asset, the brand asset, the personality. We're still using the brand colors, right? And when we talk about cohesiveness, everything doesn't have to look exactly the same. You can use the same brand colors, but it should have the same feeling. And what could bring this to life some more is maybe we add some more images or photos of like a woman in the background, or maybe remove this woman from the phone. There's so many ways, but at the same time, it still maintains some level of cohesiveness. And then for the third one, what you're seeing here is the same thing, the laughter, the smile, the joy. All these designs were created in Canva. So this is just amazing that you can utilize and create multiple designs to maintain your brand consistency and cohesiveness. Now, I am just going to touch on one last thing before we jump in, and I'm going to show you just how to save your brand template so that when you come back here, you just have this level of consistency. And if, for instance, you're like, hey, I'm going to start doing something else, I'm going to add, maybe I want a website or a landing page, then you come back here and you create the landing page. So before we wrap up, let's jump into what you have in a website. Now, what you're seeing here is a layout for a website already. And I can just go ahead and choose a template. So I'm going to say an event landing page for women. Be very specific in your search. Choose something that is going to be easy for you to replicate, especially if you are creating from scratch. Let's find one that I can easily just replicate and show you guys. Event for women. All right. And let me do a quick. Try not to be too picky, guys. I'm trying not to be too picky. All right. So I am applying this one page here. I'm gonna add another one here, just adding the different sections. We're gonna work with two sections. If you realize this is actually a wedding website, but we're gonna go in and make some quick tweaks and changes and make it our own. Again, we go back to our brand on the left hand panel, we shuffle the colors and we start making it our own. All right. I can probably change this color here. If there's anything you don't like, you go ahead and you change the colors, you select the elements. Listen, you do the thing, right? Good. Now, what we're going to do here is again the same thing. We're going to shuffle the brand colors and we have something here. So this is 2 pages. All right, we'll work with the 2 pages for this purpose about the event. So let's put event here. But what we're realizing that this element we don't want it, this element we don't want it, this is not the name of the event. So instead of having these, we can go ahead and include our logo. And again, you need to be mindful of which colors work well or mesh well with the background. So we're going to use the white here on this green. Then again, we can just change all the fonts that doesn't matches our brand. We go back to our brand templates and we just change all, right? We just do these necessary tweaks, and it's a woman summit, so we could go ahead and say women summit. Again, if you do not have the time and bandwidth, utilize Magic Write to just help you to just get started and just to help you to just stay on top of things. And then I can just change this with Magic Write and say something like rewrite, okay? Or I can say this, but make it, no, change copy for a woman summit. All right, perfect. This is Magic Write at its best. All right, market calendars, that kind of thing. Change our font, and we're gonna go ahead and change our font. You should probably do this from before, and just change the size as necessary. All right, this is it. How can we make it more cohesive? We go back to our brand and we look for our assets that we have. And I'm going to look for my floral assets. I'm just going to go ahead and add them here. Just, different placing and positioning of my graphic or my elements, I should say. And if I wanted, I could just go ahead as well and add a photo of one of the ladies here. That is just a part of the brunch experience. Um, Let me add this photo here. I'm going to use background remove. All right. And maybe we could do some cleanup, right? Well, we're not going through all of that now, but really you want to do some cleanup, or you just reposition it in a way that is easy to just make it look clean and polished. So we have this here with our woman summit. We can add some more floral thing. Again, what you're realizing is that adding just some brand elements here that adds to the personality. So when you start looking at it, you're like, okay, this really looks like everything looks cohesive across all platforms. All right, so this is what it is. And I could go ahead and do the same thing here. Go ahead and change my fonts. All right, so I'm going to say change all. About the events, I'm changing it to Abigail. And that could be it. All right, and you do some basic repositioning and changes. No, let me fix this one. All right, guys. So this is what it is. I'm not going to change the text or anything here. Like I said earlier, just use Magic Write to change out the text. You should already have a copy in place for this. So this is what the website would look like. Again, if you wanted to, make it a little different, you can change the background color here. But again, ensure that you're maintaining some brand consistency overall. So let's do a quick run through. What have we been talking about so far? What have I been really showing you? What I have been showing you is that one, you should have your brand kit set up ready to use. Two, you should be using it consistently. It's a foundation for creating your graphics. Three, it helps you to maintain consistency and cohesiveness. So when you're designing, once you create a template, once you select a template, it's the first thing you should go to when you are going to be designing. Go to your brand kit, change out the colors. You might not be a designer, you don't want to be a designer. That is totally fine. But if you're using Canva, the key important thing for you is to ensure you're maintaining brand cohesiveness, consistency. When you're building a brand, you need to have your personality. You need to let that show and evoke through your graphics so that you don't look inconsistent, you don't look all over the place. And then what I've been doing, for the past few minutes is just really walking you through how you can use multi-design to help you to see what it looks like when you have created multiple designs, and you don't have to be switching between different designs, but having a multi design, I would say, where you can just go ahead and see what everything looks like. I think this is just really amazing. I can go, hey, this is all my pages. I can just make it really big, and I just slide through, see all my designs here, and realize, okay, there's some cohesiveness, there's some consistency. And one of the things I like to do, if there's an element from one page that I like, I will just take it and drag it over. But we're not going into all of that now. So I just walked you through the basics of everything. If you want a deeper dive into brand kits, learning more about its importance. Of course, there are a lot of videos on my channel just talking about branding. I talk about branding mistakes. I share all these things because I know, as someone who is building your brand, the key thing is not just to be posting on social media, it's not just to be out there, but really to create in a way that is consistent, visually appealing, and professional, because consistency helps to build trust, right? People, you want people to spend with you, you want people to work with you, have and maintain a level of consistency. If you have any questions, just drop them in the comment below. If you're watching the replay, again, ask me all the questions. No, before we wrap up, let me just show you quickly. I've shown you all these designs. I've showed you that you can, use multiple design, add all your brand colors, all the elements, all the things. But what if when I'm designing, I need to use back something from this? Go to publish as template and the bar, top navigation bar just beside share, and you're going to say publish. Once you select publish, your design has been published as a brand template. You can either copy the link to share it or just to view it, or you can go to the folder. Once you select the folder, what you're going to be seeing is, let me show you that.